imagine if you could stop by Cloakroom and or order from Uber Eats or whatever it is, a 6-pack of pre-made cocktails, go to the park, crack them open with your friends. You're going to be getting fresh stuff. You're going to be getting better quality stuff than any of the RTDs that are available at the ASEQ. So I think it's hopefully it comes.
Andrew Whibley is the owner of Cloakroom Bar in Montreal, which revolutionized the Montreal speakeasy when it opened up behind a hidden wall in an entryway on De la Montagne Street in 2015. Before the pandemic, drinks at the tiny location were made to order and informed by the tastes of customers, so there was no menu. Ice was carved in-house, and in my experience, the atmosphere was exclusive but welcoming, even though anyone was allowed in, whether they were wearing something fancy or not, which I appreciated. Recently, Andrew and a few other bar owners have started an organization called the ASEQ, the Association for Takeout Spirits, or in French, l'Association Pour Spiritueux à Emporter Quebec, with the intention of getting a bill passed in the province that will allow bars and restaurants to sell cocktails and hard alcohol to go. We've already seen restaurants be allowed to sell alcohol with delivery using third-party apps here, so the association knows there's hope, especially when other provinces have already created similar regulations, and it seems to be going well for them, i.e. bars are making money, but so is the government. So here to talk about it all is Andrew Whibley. Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
I'm good. You?
Good, thank you. What are we drinking? What are you drinking? What I wish I could be drinking.
I have a drink, actually. My buddy Jay, who worked with me on my last project.
Wait. Jay who?
Lawson.
Yeah, I know Jay from Knox Tavern, and before that he was at M. Sir McKay, I think.
Yeah, so he's kind of my neighbor. He lives in NDG as well, and he's always playing around with things. So I haven't been making too much stuff the last few months. So I reached out to him, and he actually had kind of like already made a little bit, maybe the style of what we're talking about or going to be talking about today. So it's like a pre-bottled cocktail. It's ready to go. This is what we're pushing for to be available and to be made. So this is a coffee kombucha. So it's made the same way as kombucha with a SCOBY. So it's fermented mainly to adjust the acids. And then I'm actually not really drinking alcohol right now, just because of the whole quarantine thing. So what I had him do is add a bit of seedlip. So he used the seedlip spice. So that's like a non-alcoholic spirit, essentially. It's full of like spice flavor. It really, really packs a punch, especially if you're looking not to drink. I know a lot of people are doing dry January, which might have a day or two left in it. So basically, yeah, it's kombucha mixed with a bit of that, a few other flavors. So you just get this rich kind of coffee spice that comes through. And something like this, in theory, if we're able to get some changes done in Quebec, we should be able to do with alcohol as well, which would probably make it a little bit more fun. Mm-hmm. So it might explode because kombucha sometimes do that, but we seem to be okay.
Well, I wonder if that's a concern for the government, if they're worried about, bars bottling and not going through proper MAPAC, whatever their regulations would be. Like, do you think maybe it's a regulation issue that they're worried about?
Well, I mean, I don't think so, because the way that, like, with the MAPAC permits, you would be able to, we could cheers.
Yeah, let's cheers first. Yeah. I can explain to you what I have here. Anyway, we'll start with the cheers.
Cheers.
Sorry. So with the MAPAC,
you're able to do all of that stuff within your permits, right? So if you have a food preparation permit, as long as you're not doing fish or meat or dairy, it's basically one permit that covers everything. So if an example, this summer we were making some freezies and stuff like that, and so I spoke to MAPAC a few times, and they made it pretty clear that as long as you're not doing any of those things, it's pretty much open. So I don't think it's a health issue or like a cleanliness or anything like that issue.
Okay.
I think I don't know what it is, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, we can brainstorm what it could be. I'll explain what my drink is here. You're probably wondering, I don't know if you can make a guess at the color there, what might give it that color, but
I would say it's some form of a gimlet or a daiquiri kind of style drink, something like that.
It kind of that was the concept to it, like to sour something sweet anyway. But chartreuse, verte, and sake with a little bit of lime. I wanted to make something a little bit more complicated, but I haven't had chartreuse on the podcast before, and I figured I've been more on the sweet side, but in the bittersweet. So that's what I went for, and I kind of had to bring my A game for your sake, so. I was nervous.
Simple is often better. That's the way I see it. So,
well, I'll plug the fancy sake that I use too, which, the distributor for this would be like, I can't believe you shook that into a cocktail. You really need to just drink that as it is. But it had been open in my fridge a little bit longer, so
use it up. Sake is fun. We don't use it too much. We've experimented with it. We had a few events that requested drinks with sake. So it's fun to play around with. We usually will like kind of sub it in for a vermouth or something like that.
Yeah, that was my idea too. Exactly. And a little bit lighter than a vodka, but you get the pure flavor, but you get some of the floral notes.
It's really cool. Last year I was at the raw wine show.
Yeah.
And it's a buddy of mine, Omar and Andreas. They have a company that imports a lot of mainly Italian wines, but they had a bunch of different sakes. And it was really interesting to kind of taste through the whole lineup. And there's a lot of different profiles that you can get. And it's not overly used in cocktails, so it's not something that a lot of bartenders and stuff are super familiar with, but it's definitely fun to play around with.
Well, let's talk about getting to play around with more things. You haven't been able to play around with a lot of alcohol lately for customers. Tell me a little bit about the association and what your goals are with this petition.
Yeah, so this is something that, in my opinion, should have been done a long time ago. Every other province has made some form of changes to the liquor laws and regulations in order to help businesses get through the pandemic. Quebec has not really done anything. They made the amendment a few months ago with the Bill 72 to get to be able to do it through third party distributors like Uber Eats or whatever. And in my opinion, that's just not even near enough. They also left bar permits completely out of that. So that's only restaurants. So right now in Montreal, like bars actually can't even sell wine and beer to go with or without food or anything. They're not allowed to do anything alcohol. So back before Christmas, myself, Toby Lyle, who's one of the owners at Burgundy Lion, and Kevin Demers, who's the owner of Cold Room and Parliament in the Old Port, we kind of started to put our heads together and decided to try to push to make a few changes and focus on that. So what we're looking for is kind of very similar to what Ontario has done. Basically, they went off of a decree, basically that happened right away, to allow bars to do alcohol that was sealed and sold with their mixers and stuff like that, which at least gives you something to do and something to sell. And then back in December or end of November, they actually made it a permanent law and changed it so you could do cocktails, so full-on mixed cocktails and stuff like that to go. So we're hoping for something similar. Basically, we're starting with a petition. We have, I checked this morning and we're just under 1,900, so it might have gone up a little bit since then. And we've also been backed with a few other organizations to try to help and get their members to sign the petition. We've also met with some NMAs to try to get it moving and actually get something going with this petition, to try to get a change just to help us.
And what are those government people saying? What kind of response are you getting? Are you getting reticence? Are you getting like, oh, I don't know if we can push this. You just got the third-party delivery. Can't you back off? Or are they really on board with you?
The ones that we've spoken to, so Toby's definitely been the one who has more contacts and has been doing most of the talking with them. And they've been all super receptive. What we decided also, because in my opinion, there's many things that the government should have done since the beginning.
You need something stronger if we want to talk about that, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of broke it down into three little things, but I mean, when we originally spoke back in December, we decided really to focus on this one issue because there's no real negative side effect from it. Unless you're like a religious nut or just against drinking in general, you shouldn't be opposed to it. So everyone who we've spoken to so far has been supportive of it, and are willing to back it and definitely help us out with it, because it's just a one-off ask. We're just asking for this one thing, which is to be able to sell hard alcohol and cocktails to go in bars and restaurants in Quebec.
Right.
So,
and there was an estimated $75 million of spirits to go sales made last year by restaurants and bars just in the last fiscal quarter of 2020. That's what you wrote in the press release. So that's in other provinces across Canada, not including Quebec and the Maritimes. That's a huge amount of money with, profits, obviously, taxes going to the government there. So it seems like a win-win. Why do you think there would be hesitancy? Like, let's brainstorm this. Like, what's holding them back? Is it a legal issue? Is it a time issue? Do they have bigger concerns?
I mean, Quebec has always been very archaic with the liquor laws, and I think that, in my opinion, and some people might disagree with this, but I think it's the associations and things that were already existing don't necessarily have a great understanding of what bar and let's say like craft restaurants and bar people need and want to go forward. If you look at the liquor laws, the majority of them were written in the 1950s or earlier, and a lot of them were really, really, really based on consumer protection. That's why, for example, we're not allowed to do infusions necessarily, because the way it's written is to protect the consumer, which is like you're not allowed to add anything to the bottle. What they're referring to is like adding Smirnoff to your Grey Goose bottle, not adding a stick of vanilla to your vodka bottle to make it taste different. So, and Quebec has just never really wanted to change those or change those, whereas other provinces have a better infrastructure to understand, I think, what businesses need. A good example is in BC, they have the Business Technical Advisory Committee, which is basically a group that kind of advises the government on stuff, but it's really based on smaller restaurateurs and more, let's say, craft people who have an understanding of kind of where the industry is going forward. So there's nothing like that in place in Quebec. So we've just never really had these changes made. And if you look at the bar associations that are in existence and stuff, most of them are based around larger chains, and their interests are in those chains. So they don't really have the understanding. So I don't think that it's like on their radar to ask for that. They'd rather fight for different issues and other things rather than things that could directly help small local businesses potentially make it through the pandemic or offer better services or products going forward as well.
And when you talk about chains, those are not the businesses that are going to be crafting artisanal cocktails, and they're not going to be infusing kombucha with coffee. Like, I can't do that at home. No. Like, when I don't know if everybody understands. I don't know if the government understands. I don't know if consumers understand the value in those kinds of products. Like, if you go into Cloakroom, like I remember going into Cloakroom, and there's kind of a feeling of excitement. Like you walk into a speakeasy or any kind of really great bar when you know you're going to get a great drink, and you don't know exactly what that's going to be. And I look at what's put in front of me from Pistolero, from Knox Tavern, from Cold Room, and we can't do that at home. I think a lot of people are missing that right now. What kinds of products would be brought forward? Would it be batch G&Ts, or would it be more like what Jay prepared there and what you're talking about?
I mean, it could be anything. If you think of the third person involved in this, Toby, I mean, his bars aren't necessarily known as cocktail places. They do make great drinks, especially like Bishop and Bag and But they're definitely known for like their whiskeys or their gins, and
so what would they
Wolf and Workman is Quebec
Yeah.
spirits. But like what we spoke about is, if you could do whiskey tastings and stuff like that and sell your lineup. Burgundy Lion has about $250,000 of whiskey sitting on their back bar, and the vast majority of it is unavailable at the ASEQ. Cloakroom, we also have our vintage collection and stuff like that. Those are things that you just can't get at the ASEQ.
Yeah, I can't even get Chartreuse Jaune, for goodness sakes. I had to do it with the green.
Yeah.
First world problems, I know. But
so, that would be a way that everyone could kind of look at it to adapt and try to figure something out. And then obviously places like Cloakroom or Cold Room or any of the great cocktail bars in the city would probably have a different approach and do things that are maybe a little bit more interesting, a little bit more funky, like a kombucha thing or just any cocktails off their menu. You could adapt it to go, basically.
Yeah.
So
what would that mean for employees? Like, what are you hearing from former bartenders that are not working right now? Would they come back, or are they getting new trained, or have we already lost them?
I think with this second wave, we're going to see a lot of them switch careers. I think the first one, the first shutdown, everyone stuck it out because it was very abrupt and kind of out of nowhere, and everyone just kind of stuck it out. But now I think we're coming up on a year that most of these people have been out of work for probably all but around 3 months of it. So I think you will see a lot of people that are going to change career paths or go back to school unfortunately, I think we're going to lose a lot of people. And doing this, though, that's one of the things, we would be able to easily bring back at least a small percentage of our employees to do the batching and to do the bottling or whatever it is in-house, right?
Yeah.
So just that, you would be able to get people off of unemployment or CERB or whatever they're on right now.
Do you think a lot of bars that would want to do this have the capacity to do this? Like, do they know how to bottle? Would they be able to have enough people to do it?
I guess kind of alluding to what I said before, I think if something like this were to pass, everyone would be able to do something to get creative and make it work for them. Not every place is Cloakroom and will have, we have experience doing exactly this type of thing. But other places that aren't, I think that they could still use it as a base to build something from it. Like I said, if Toby does, he could obviously do cocktails as well, but they could also, focus on their whiskeys or their back bar and
right.
expediting that to go, maybe creating like whiskey tastings or stuff like that. It would just, I think right now we just have no opportunity to be creative and do it. I think if something like this were to pass, I think there's no excuse for anyone not to be able to adapt to something in order to be able to maintain a little bit of business.
So let's say this goes ahead and the government says, okay, great, do takeout, maybe even delivery. Do you expect it'll be with food?
Well, that was one of the little changes that they made. They changed the wording back in December to say food instead of meal, I believe is what it was switched to. So in theory, you could sell with maybe some nuts or some chips or something very small, just as
because a bar is not going to have a full kitchen to pump out meals, but they could pump out snacks.
Yeah, exactly. That would be like Cloakroom. We don't have food is not part of our business plan and never has been.
So what would you do?
We did think about it,
but why would you now? Or why would you change though?
Yeah, but we because of that change that was made in December, you would in theory only have to do like nuts or chips or something very small. So we'd be able to adapt to that. Like I said, it's just giving us a chance to adapt and giving us the chance to make a little bit of change, because right now it's Cloakroom, we can't do anything because we don't do food, and that would be all we're allowed to do. We can't even, I have pretty decent knowledge in wine and beer and stuff like that, and with what's available for restaurants to sell right now, I would be able to adapt and do some cool beers or wines or something, and at least try to get a product out there. But we literally can't do anything, and it's just not feasible to try to build like a kitchen or something like that right now. So
collaborations, have you been thinking about collaborations with restaurants?
Again, so I have I mean, because we're not allowed to do alcohol, I don't think it would be worth it. We did one back in the first lockdown with Cook It. So Leah, who's the ambassador for Romeo's Gin and a few other products, she reached out, and we did like little packs for Cook It. It was ACC, Cold Room, and Cloakroom, and they sold very, very well. But unless you're really attaching it to it, because it's going to be an add-on. So the non-alcoholic packages for me anyway, I just don't think it's the best way to do it. Because unless I know ACC is doing them and they're having like a lot of success with it, but it's because their whole menu is built around food and takeout, and they've adapted to that. And then these are just little add-ons that you do.
Sorry,
so,
ACC? ACC stands for?
Atwater Cocktail Club. Uh-huh. They have foie gras, fugazi, and they've kind of like put all their resources together and focused on takeout. But they're both of their places have full kitchens. Yeah. And you know, doing a little non-alcoholic packet, that model works for them because they already have the kitchen infrastructure and stuff like that, and doing a little add-on work. But I don't think it really makes sense for a lot of places to do that. Just like, you know, the non-alcoholic stuff is, I mean, like it's the non-alcoholic cocktail mixers. I just don't think it's a huge market. I think that you need to have the booze. I think people predominantly are a little bit lazy, and the second you have to start pulling from a few different places to get what you're looking for, it's gonna hurt the overall sales. So that's why I think it's really necessary to have booze included in it.
Do you think that applies when you can buy an entire bottle of something with your pre-mixed juices and syrups and things like that, or is that only when you have to go buy the bottle separately at the ASEQ?
Well, so in Vancouver right now, that's basically what they're doing. The bottle, I believe, unless it's changed in the last few weeks or whatever, that it's the bottle has to be sealed.
Yeah, so you have to buy an entire $60 or $80 bottle of whiskey or bourbon or whatever for
well, but what I think they're doing is they're not pricing it. They're not pricing super aggressively and they're focusing more on the add-ons. There's also pretty much every company I've seen more and more smaller format bottles. So it doesn't even have to be a 750. True. It could be a 500 ml. I believe Toby, I don't have the exact statistic, but it was from Beam Suntory, which has also supported the petition a lot. Their sales of the small, like little airplane bottles have skyrocketed as well.
Which you know, I mean, I would take if that's what it would take to get legalized. Yeah. But what I don't like about that is it leaves the smaller producers struggling. Like they're never going to be selected for these cocktails because you'd have to get an entire bottle of something very expensive. So you're going to go with the cheaper ones that are more accessible to consumers. Does that bother you in any way? That you're helping the big players rather than smaller ones? Theoretically, well, potentially.
In theory, it could, but I know, like for example, I'm 90% sure that I've seen smaller format Circa gins recently.
Yeah. I mean, I would call them a big company at this point. They're great.
They're a great company. I don't think
but they're a quality. They're not a Bacardi, you know, like they're not.
Yeah.
You know, they're not a generic big producer.
Yeah, and there's, I know another buddy of mine, Max, who actually he's working with Seedlip, which is in my cocktail right now. He did something at Christmas time, which was with like an office group, and it was like I know that it was with a gin company, and they produced like the small bottles. I don't think it was special for it. I think they already had them. So and it was a local company, right? So there, I mean, as long as there's a few local companies, I think, that are doing it, the other ones will wake up eventually, and
yeah,
you know,
also sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say also though, in the unfortunate reality of the bar game is that the major companies play a major part in our business, right? You know, I could say that without shame that my businesses are are backed by and supported by some of the largest alcohol companies. I don't think that big means bad, and I don't think that small means good in the other way. So, there's if you look at most of the successful bars around the city, they're all going to be kind of supported usually by some of the major players. So and then the local stuff, I think that there's starting to be a few good products from Quebec, and bartenders will support them as much as we can.
I guess my question is, what about mixing? Because a cocktail is not necessarily one alcohol and juice and syrup. You can combine 3 or 4 alcohols into a wonderful cocktail, and maybe you need that flavor and you need that alcohol. Like we were talking about sake before versus vodka to kind of stretch out a drink. You wouldn't be able to sell 3 bottles of liquor with takeout cocktail.
Yeah, well, that's why ideally it would be very similar, and what we're asking for is basically worded exactly with what they passed in Ontario, which would let us pre-mix.
And would be an easier sell because they can look at what's worked and
and I know that it's working very well in Ontario. I know that at Christmas time they were some places were having a hard time even keeping up with the volume of sales, and definitely I think by being able to pre-mix it and like you just saw, just pop it open,
easy,
pour it in a glass, it's super easy. And also like you alluded to, if we're able to actually pre-mix it like they are in Ontario, it would definitely help with drinks like negronis or anything stronger, right? Because you're definitely, it's a little bit of a stretch if you're trying to do like a cocktail kit based around like an old fashioned or something. It wouldn't really make much sense. So definitely what we're asking for is exactly what they've done in Ontario.
Yeah. And I should just make a disclaimer that we're promoting a lot of alcohol right now, and it's in consumers' best interest to drink responsibly, and it's their responsibility to drink responsibly. So if they are ordering these cocktails, it's not up to a bartender at a bar to tell them to stop. So I hope that listeners and viewers of this podcast understand that we're just promoting a product that can be responsibly consumed at home.
Yeah, of course. I mean, most of the drinks that we make at Cloakroom and things like that, it's more of an experience than anything, right? And it's
exactly.
You're not drinking to get drunk. You're drinking to enjoy the spirits and the mixes and stuff like that. So that's definitely important as well.
And it's still an experience, even if you're not at the venue. So I want to just end with a little lightning round. I usually start off the show with a little bit of a lightning round, but I feel like now we're a little more warmed up. I'm so curious because as a bartender, you get to talk to so many people, and I don't know if you missed that horribly right now.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely like Cloakroom. It's crazy because we're right downtown, and we just get such an eclectic mix of people, a ton of tourists, a ton of very interesting people. I've made some of my closest friends were started off as clients, like on business or whatever it was, and we've kept in touch. So there's definitely that element that it's missed for sure, and just being around people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. And what you said, you're not drinking a lot of cocktails in quarantine right now. But what cocktails have you drank the most during the last year?
So that's probably not the best question for me.
Okay.
I started. I'm a little bit intense with a lot of things that I do, to say the least. So back in March, there was like the first 2 weeks of the lockdown. I was doing all these like Zoom calls with my buddies and everything like that, and we were definitely drinking cocktails. I was drinking a lot of like craft beer. There's a little beer store right around the corner from my house, so I was picking up all sorts of weird like funky beers that were locally produced, and then after about like maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks, I was just like, this kind of is not what I want to be doing right now. I wasn't getting like drunk or anything, but 3 or 4 beers or 5 beers, and then like I'm at home I can't really go anywhere. I can't really do anything. The thing that I enjoy the most about cocktails and drinking, even if it's without alcohol, but obviously with alcohol, it's the social aspect, being around people and all that kind of stuff. So I just decided then that I wasn't really gonna drink until things started to get back to normal. And I could be social again.
That turned into a very difficult thing.
So
summer, I guess.
Yeah, but then this is again where it comes down to, I'm quite an intense person, is that I decided to get in shape, and I went on like an insane diet and training and everything. And I've been pretty much on that since then. So the summer I didn't drink. I have drank twice since April or end of March.
Wow. As a bartender, that is incredible.
Yeah. It was a mix of the two things. It was a mix of the social aspect and the fact that I wanted to just live a bit of a healthier lifestyle. I will drink again. Like at Christmas, actually I went to Jay's house for Christmas with his wife and his daughter. And we definitely had some very interesting wines and things like that. And he had all sorts of kombuchas and weird things that he fermented that he forced me to try as well. So I indulged a little bit then. I play a decent amount of golf, and on the last day of golf, had a few beers with the guys afterwards. But besides that, like I said, it's a bit of health stuff, and it's a bit of the social stuff, because I don't really. I mean, right now, it's. I don't know. For me, like I was never the type of person either who would like enjoy sitting on my couch and drinking. Like I've have thousands of dollars worth of alcohol in my apartment because I get given stuff and I've collected over the years. I honestly, well, now it's been almost a year, let's say, but even before that, I probably couldn't even tell you the last time I had a drink at home. I really like drinking. It's a huge part of my life. It's been a part of my life for basically as long as I can remember. And but it's always been social. It's always been out with people. It's always been around people. And it's just, it doesn't feel right now just drinking at home. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you got to be home at 8 o'clock. Like,
yeah, curfew.
You can't even.
Yeah, flashback to early life. What about picnics coming up? When's the next time you're going to be drinking? Are you going to be out in parks, on patios? Or are you going to be recipe testing for this, if this goes ahead?
Well, for this stuff, if we're able to do cocktails to go, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of experience in making batching cocktails. I'd say I'm probably one of the people with the most experience of that in Montreal, if not the whole country. With Jay, actually, it was on one of my last projects that was really built around that kind of stuff. So
what was that? Can I get a little bit of background there?
It was called Still Life. Well, I'm not involved in it anymore in that project, but everything was based around bottled and batched and tapped and stuff like that. So I have all of the book written on how to do it, and also how to do it safely and make sure that it's stable for a longer period of time, and all that. So we'd be pretty much ready to rock. As far as the next time we drink, honestly, definitely this summer. Hopefully patios are open. I have a little country house up near Tremblant, so up there, outside in the sun. I can't wait. I went for a run this morning. It was -17. So
me too. It was great. You know, the first 5 minutes, a little brutal, and then you get past that and it's amazing. The runner's high. I've never had it before like that.
Yeah, it was special. And it definitely, after I probably, about that 5 minute mark, I was like, why the hell am I doing this? But definitely after, when I got home and stretched and stuff like that, I felt incredible. But yeah, from -17, I can't wait until it's +25 and we could be on the lake or in the country or doing anything like that. That's when, being up there or even in a park or wherever it is outside with friends and stuff like that, that's where I enjoy drinking the most. And that's for sure where I'll be back on it. That was something last year that I expected, it was kind of, it unfortunately kind of, I lost a bit of feeling, because it was like we were allowed to reopen. I think it was June 22nd they announced that we could reopen, and then about a week after, they were like, the François Legault and Horatio, or whatever his name is, they came out and were like, don't go to bars, don't go to restaurants, like.
And you're like,
so,
what are you doing to us?
Yeah, and they were encouraging people to drink in parks, and there was, I mean, it was a guy who worked for me at Cloakroom, who ended up moving back to Germany. He had his like little going away party in I think it was Laurier Park, and it was like there's a million people around. I went to Mount Royal a few times in the summer, and it was like there's a million people around, and it's they were encouraging that, which is fine. It's definitely like I think it should be enjoyed, but they were discouraging going to bars. So that was where I was like, okay, well, if they had let us sell cocktails to go, then we would have made a killing last summer.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could stop by Cloakroom and or order from Uber Eats or whatever it is, a 6-pack of pre-made cocktails, go to the park, crack them open with your friends. You're going to be getting fresh stuff. You're going to be getting better quality stuff than any of the RTDs that are available at the ASEQ. So I think it's hopefully it comes. Like I said at the beginning, we started this petition. It's on change.org. It's under Association des Spiritueux Emporter Quebec, or ASEQ Quebec. We have a Facebook group, Instagram, and you can find the petition on change.org, and definitely sign it and share it for us. That would be a huge benefit. The more people that share it, the more people that sign it, and we're not too far off from what we need to hopefully be able to get some movement, but the more the merrier, for sure.
Of course, yeah. Well, then 3 last quick questions to go.
Yeah.
1-word answers or 3-word answers in the case of the last question. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
I hope so.
Favorite whiskey?
It would be E.H. Taylor Small Batch. It's a bourbon. I'm a huge bourbon guy. That would be my go-to whiskeys. I do enjoy scotches and everything, but the E.H. Taylor, it's just so good. It's their wheat blend, so it lines up very similar to like a Poppy Van Winkle, but it's about $80 a bottle, so it's a little bit more affordable, and it's just delicious.
Well, that was a lot more than 1 word, but I will not hold that against you. How about this one? Sweet or salty?
Dry. Can I say dry?
Well, no, but yes. Sure.
If I'm snacking, definitely salty. I do not have a huge sweet tooth. If I'm in a cocktail, I would be dry. I mean, yeah, that would be the answer.
Yeah, I
understand. So salty or dry.
Fair enough. I'm with you on that, despite the Chartreuse, which is ridiculously syrupy, but because of the bitterness, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And then the last question, the secret of a great cocktail in 3 words or less.
Balance. I could do that one in 1. Balance is key.
That's a good one. That's easy. I gave you 3 just in case you needed 3, but you don't need to take them.
But that's something, I mean, it's one of the most important things, and it's one of the things that's unfortunately lost a lot, I think, with bartenders, especially young bartenders. I've done a seminar with one of my old bar managers on understanding sugar and how it's used in a cocktail, because a lot of people don't. It sounds ridiculously basic, but it's just a lot of people don't understand sugar and how it interacts with acids and things like that. So that's something we really, and at Cloakroom also, it's a huge thing that we focus on, because we don't use a menu. We teach more how to build drinks and how to balance drinks. I'd much rather like a perfectly balanced daiquiri with like the perfect amount of sugar, perfect amount of sour that's perfect, than something that has these like wild, crazy ingredients in it that should blow your mind, but it's too sweet or too sour or too bitter or too whatever. So balance is key.
I love it. I love that a lot. And it makes me want to go back to Cloakroom, and it makes me want to buy your batched drinks if that becomes a possibility.
hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm optimistic. I'm more optimistic this week than I probably was a month ago. So.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Change.org. Everybody will go there and sign the petition.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure talking.
Okay. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the ASEQ podcast. If you want to sponsor the podcast, get in touch on Instagram with me, Amy Watson, at Miss Watson. That's Miss Watson with 2 T's, or on my blog, multiculturosity.com, which is a mouthful, so just check wherever you got this podcast. You can also catch up on past episodes, like my conversation with Montreal chef Erin Langille, that was episode 1 of season 1, or my conversation with the owners of Alambica, a fancy cocktail bar in Montreal that I am dying to get back to this spring or summer. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Pocket Casts, or follow on Spotify or YouTube, or just stream any episode directly on my blog, multiculturosity.com. For links to everywhere that we mentioned, check out the show notes wherever you got this podcast. Until next week, sip something delicious, alcoholic or not, wherever you are.